So, today's adventure, venturing off to a farm in Albion, well, not in Albion, but near Albion, Nebraska. Guy has a group of cars, a couple Torinos, 4-door, and then he's also got a 2-door Torino, 74, 76, Bill Blaz Edition Lincoln Mark V, and a bunch of late 60s Galaxies XLs sitting out there as well. Came across this guy back in 2019 on Craigslist, looking randomly, of all things, a black 74 base Torino, not a Grand Torino, actually a base Torino, and that car got the nickname of Bruiser because it was a factory special order black car with a blue interior, black and blue, hence Bruiser. So here we are driving up to Jerry's farm in Albion, Nebraska, and this is where I came across Bruiser sitting in the weeds where it hadn't been moved for many years, basically over 12 years in that spot where I found it. This is where I had to insert the obligatory music because we got this thing loaded and got it on the road and going back to Omaha at the time, getting ready to head to Alabama. So let's be completely honest here with this whole segue. I trucked Bruiser cross country to store it in summer of 19, and mistakes were made on my part in judgment and life decisions, and like they say, bad decisions make for great stories. But you know, would I change things now, looking back? Yeah. But anyways, this is where I'm at. This is the story of Bruiser. This is my story, and if you don't like it, change the effing channel, man. But yeah, here we are, Alabama, dropping the car off, and starting a chapter of my life that was, yeah, it was something. Moving Bruiser into its spot to unload it, so that way I could store it down there for the coming year and just leave it sit for a while and see what became of it. But as anyone that knows me, you know, moving forward, things don't always go the way you expect or plan. One of the things that I find I am fortunate about in everything is I have this car trailer now, and this thing has made my life so much easier compared to my old car trailer that I had years ago. Looking back at things, this place was over 12,000 square feet, and I always said it would never get filled up. Oh yeah, so this is the comedy I have. Every time we drove cross country, I'd always strap a Tonka truck or something to the trailer because you got an empty trailer. This is Pineapple Willie's in Florida. One eternity later. And here I am. Again, recreation of heading the hell back up to Nebraska to get the hell home. And dealing with the people driving down south. I'm just going to tell you, some folks are, woo, the things I experienced, I didn't drink, and it made me want to drink. especially with how some of the people down south drove, man. I just don't know what to say other than damn.
Whiskey bottles and brand new cars. Oak tree, you're in my way.
One of the things that was amazing about Bruiser was how absolutely clean and solid this car was, considering it had been a South Dakota car sitting off the road. Now, enter the donor car where the drivetrain was coming from. Richie's 76. I'm just sitting here doing some work on a rear end on one of my cars. But, you know, as you guys can see, somebody pulled a Leonard Skinnerd in a 74 Ford Grand Torino and went and yeeted themselves into a forest or a ditch or something like that with this poor car. But that moment when you realize you may have a 70s Ford addiction, I don't know, could be wrong here. This is what you end up with. Torino. Oh, hey, look back over there. There's another Torino. Montego. Just one of them things. I don't know. That might be a problem. Might be addiction. And then, oh hey, yeah, another Torino. Son of a bitch. But I don't know when the last time anybody has seen this many of the bastards in one spot, just chilling. Here I am getting ready to do a little bit of work on Bruiser. In the background you can see where I've already dropped the rear axle out of Bruiser, and I'm going to put the 9-inch out of Richie's wrecked Torino into the back of Bruiser because it was fully rebuilt. I came to find out after the fact that it had been actually rebuilt with an open rear end instead of a track lock rear end, which I just thought was odd. So here's the Cleveland, and then also the AOD that came out of the other Torino. Originally the plan was it was going to top load or swap my car, but then I was going to do an AOD because I wanted to give this car to my dad, and my dad did not want it at that time. So I decided I was just going to end up taking the car back north, and I would figure out what I was going to do, and ended up just setting it aside. But at this time, you know, I was just going through a lot in my life, and things didn't pan out the way I expected them and went kind of really sideways. But just ending the whole situation and getting the car loaded, and I was not happy at that point in my life. Frankly, frustration, it sums up everything. A lot of other thoughts and stuff, but I'm just trying to let the past be the past and move forward, because it doesn't do any good to sit here. But, you know, right now I'm sitting here, got the car loaded. It's sometime in January, don't really remember exactly when. Just heading to my buddy Sean's place and heading off to near Tulsa, Oklahoma, so Bruiser could sit next to Dave and sit, and then we enter the 1 year later thing where I go to pick the car up in 22. What are we doing today?
We're not buttering yours.
We're going to rescue one of our own. We're going to rescue Bruiser.
We come from the cult of Torino, and we're going to rescue one of our wayward brethren.
that is the correct answer. Lovely flyover country. Cruising down the highway in the middle of Kansas. Going to rescue a Torino. Film at 11. Here's two of my friends that I haven't seen in a while. There's Dave. And here's Bruiser. Yeah, hopefully we'll find him a good home. Wanted to build the car, but sometimes being an adult means making tough choices. But it'll be a great car for somebody. And it's got the right bones to be a good car. Just, unfortunately, I'd rather pay down my debt instead of going into more debt to build another car. That's what Dave is for, back there. See, back there, yes. So, anyways. My buddy's place, hidden away down here in Oklahoma. God, love the collection of stuff down here. Luckily, he was nice enough to allow me to store this stuff down here in a time of need when I was really in a bad spot in my life. Made some bad choices, trusted the wrong person, and financially it didn't pan out for me. But you know what? At the end of the day, doing a lot better now than I had been in the past, and we'll rebuild and go on. So, as I like to say, life goes on and it's not so bad. I'm still here and kicking. Anyways, enough pondering life last 2.5 years. Onward and upward. So, good morning, all. So, back here with Bruiser back in Kansas, and notice some interesting things. If you're into these Torinos like I am, you kind of make some assumptions, but Ford, in its infinite wisdom, was Ford and did weird things. The bean counters loved to have their way with things. So on top of the air cleaner here, we have the wiring harness for the engine. To my surprise, when I looked at this car has not been molested with for probably 30 plus years. It had sat on a farm in north central Nebraska near Albion, Nebraska for many years. The guy bought it from a guy who had bought it previously, and basically it changed hands between sometime in the early 80s and then around 85, 86 it just went off the road because somebody was using this thing as a Saturday night special. This car doesn't have power brakes, does not have power steering, but somebody had done a few things with the rear end that was underneath this car, which was just a colossal mess. I've never seen such hackery before Well, unless you include the stuff I seen in my year in Alabama. But anyways, so yeah, the harness on this car, it's got the provisions, you know, coming over here for your, I believe your coil and whatnot. Here's your choke for an electric choke. You know, and you got a few of your other connections, like for your water temp, and I believe this would be for the, I'm drawing a little bit of a blank right now, but I don't know, probably the oil pressure idiot light that this thing would have had. Being that this was a base car, I've never bothered to run it, but I believe it's an F code. I think it was a 302, but it's curious to me that it's missing no dirt spark box, no provision for dirt spark wiring. And for a 1974 base model, that kind of blew my mind. Other things that just cracked me up is this car's been off the road since '85, and these fender liners are still wearing their factory paint and are not rotted through both sides, if you can believe that. Normally in the Torino community, these things are rotten to hell. It's the same thing with the radiator support. The radiator support's still wearing factory paint, and if you look down here, I mean, the paint is, it surprises me. This car continues to surprise me. And that's factory paint. It's never been repainted. I don't see the normal stress cracking that these develop through here. Especially down, sorry, sunlight's here, but down around the mount, they tend to develop stress cracks through here as these cars age. My 72, I had to re-weld the radiator support and patch that. But, you know, base car, heat only, no air conditioning, which makes it kind of nice when you're doing stuff like a Saturday night special, because you don't have interference. You have tons of room over here if you're doing headers. The same thing, what's cool about this is with the manual box, with how small the manual box is, again, great for running headers. It's just interesting to see some of the stuff that was done on this car. It's I'm stuck because I'm sitting here debating. I don't need Bruiser. I don't want to sink a bunch of money into Bruiser because I already have my GTS. GTS is my 72 Gran Torino Sport factory 4-speed Cobra Jet car. But Bruiser is just screaming out. Let's see if I can get down without killing myself. Oh, this car just screams to have my top loader in it, and to put the proper thing, which would be getting rid of these pesky automatic pedal and dropping in a modern driveline manual clutch pedal retrofit. This car, it's staggering to see when you look at a car like this. You know, it's got a little bit of surface rust, but there is no rot through on the pan. These floor pans, sorry, I'm gonna tilt it sideways, I'm gonna drive you nuts, but I mean, that's all factory floor pan, factory paint, and it's not rotten. Underside of the car has some of the normal typical surface rust, but it's interesting to see how this car, it's really amazing to me the condition it's in. Now keep in mind with this car, I mean the base 74 front end also just makes it. So is it perfect? No, but this would make one hell of a runner for somebody. Hopefully not a damn Starsky and Hutch car, because you know everybody seems to want to do Starsky and Hutch cars, and frankly these things looks pretty damn good in black. But this one is comical, the stuff I've noticed on this car over the years. had it in my short few time. Just stuff like somebody had done some cute stripes on it, and then they had done a pinstripe job down the top of the car, and then carried it up and around. But yeah, it's definitely one hell of a car. Annoying things I've noticed, of course, is because mice took and drug insulation into the hood, they got up into the bracing of the hood and rotted the hood. The whole inside structure of this hood is all roached. Luckily, one of my buddies, Raymond McLeod, got me another hood, and I have a pristine deck lid for this car as well. I have to wonder if that dealership is still around. Always gotta love a good thrush decal. But it's just, you can see the stripes a little bit better on this side, where it's almost reminiscent of what I was envisioning doing with a Hot Wheels Torino. I always loved this. I don't know why. Somebody used some reflective letters meant for a mailbox and did Ford on the fenders. But, you know, it's not a Grand Torino. It is a Torino, or just a base coupe. But it's just kind of staggering how this car, like, still has all the fender liners in it. But again, you know, your fender liners, they're not even rotted on this car. It's still wearing factory paint. The frame is another example on this car, where normally by this time most of the factory paint is gone and rusted. This thing still has a lot of the black paint, but I think a lot of that goes back to this car being originally up in South Dakota, and then it came to Nebraska, but it sat off the road for so many years, kind of like my 72. But I have to see, have somebody come and look at the car today, so be interesting to see what happens, see if it goes to a new home or not. You know, stuff like on these cars, if you look, there's a little bit of surface rust there, but these doors are amazingly solid. Same thing with the rockers. I mean, honestly, the worst spot on this car on both sides is right down here. It's just got some minor rot, but overall, it's a solid car. But it's going to need some minor metal work. I mean, you could do tab quarters on the lowers and replace them. I make no bones about that. Like, I noticed this last night where the lip has corrosion. Well, guess what? If it's got that corrosion, it's probably rusted up to here. So you're going to want to put at least a patch, you know, something like that. Or you do the whole bottom of the quarter panel and be done with it. Oh, yeah. More pinstriping. That's comical. They put pinstriping all over this thing. But, you know, like the floor pans. And then I have a factory floor shift console, or the factory floor shifter opening, and the correct hump for either the automatic or a 4-speed car. This is also just, I don't know, this came out of a parts car that had a B&M mega shifter. That shifter's going to get tossed in the garbage probably because it's all seized up. But the main thing is the floor hump is there and saved it out of a good car. So good car for parts, that is. But yeah, it's kind of funny to see how, I mean, it's still wearing its factory AM radio in there. Just, you know, basic as it gets. You know, top of the dash pad's douched, but you can buy a brand new one. And of course, you know, mice having their field day with the headliner, but you know, you're going to replace that if you decide to redo this car anyways. But it's just interesting to see how this car did live. But enough of my rambling. That's all I got for now on Bruiser. So be curious to see what happens. Hopefully maybe he finds a good home.